What's up and welcome to another review from Gizmo Slip Tech. Today we're taking a look at the MSI GT75. This is the beastly, most powerful MSI laptop that money can buy. But how does this laptop stack up to some of the best competition out there? We'll be going over a ton of benchmarks as well as a bunch of pros and cons. Let's dive into it. Here we go. The GT75 features two main configuration options. You can get one for $28.99 with the i7-9750H and the RTX 2070. Now this configuration only comes with 32 gigs of dual channel DDR4 2666 megahertz memory. Now you can also get a more expensive configuration that costs $43.99. Now that comes with the new i9-9980HK processor as well as the RTX 2080 graphics card. Now this configuration also comes with 64 gigs of RAM instead of 32 and includes an extra power adapter, so you're gonna have to take two 230 watt power adapters instead of one 330 watt power adapter. Now the main differences between the two configurations is that the 9980HK is an 8-core processor and it's unlocked, so it's gonna be overclockable, which is really good in a system this thick and big because you're gonna be able to really maximize the hefty cooling in the GT75. Now this particular laptop was sent to me by HID Evolution and it is the $28.99 model, but this does have about $200 of aftermarket upgrades on it, including a bottom panel upgrade where they cut out circular cutouts to allow for greater airflow into the fans. They claim that this will reduce the temperatures by 5 degrees Celsius. Now this thing also has CPU and GPU repaste jobs as well as thermal pads and a reduced backlight bleed display. Now you can totally order this laptop stock, but you will expect marginally higher temperatures because it doesn't have these aftermarket upgrades on the laptop. Now I'll have a link in the video description down below if you want to check out this laptop, so a big thank you to HID Evolution for sending it out. Now I do want to also mention that this is not a sponsored video. HID Evolution is not paying me to like praise their products or anything, but they do a good job, so I'm glad they send me products. So taking off the bottom cover, we need to remove 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws it looks like. Taking a look at the internals of the system here, we've got empty RAM slots here, we've got our 5 M.2 slots right here. Our 2.5-inch drive bay is down under here. That currently has a 1 terabyte HDD. We've got a dedicated subwoofer as well as 2 other speakers right here. Overall, we have 12 heat pipes between the CPU and GPU, and one of them here is shared. So there will be some load bearing of the temperatures between the two, but it'll be very minor compared to a lot of them that only have, like, for example, 3 heat pipes and like one of them is shared. We'll also have our killer wireless right here. So if you want to switch that out, that is where you would do that. That does not look easy to switch out though. It looks like you have to take the heat pipes off the motherboard to be able to switch that Wi-Fi card. Now the ports on this laptop are freaking fantastic. On the right side we have the headphone and mic port as well as a Sabre Hi-Fi DAC, which is going to be great for all you audiophiles out there that want like flawless, lossless audio to really high-end headphones. Then we have 3 USB 3.2 Type A's and a massive exhaust port. On the back, we have dual flanking exhausts that are just freaking huge. Then we have the power input, HDMI, a Thunderbolt 3, a mini display port, and the Ethernet port. On the right side, we have 2 more USB 3.2 Type A's and a full-size SD card slot. This is the most amazing selection of ports on a laptop that I've seen to date. Now this thing comes with a 90 watt-hour battery. That is fairly large, but unfortunately this does not have NVIDIA Optimus, meaning that you're gonna be running that RTX 2070 non-stop, and that's really gonna hamper the battery life. So I mean, if you're optimizing this machine for the maximum possible battery life, you're looking at maybe 3 to 3.5 hours of casual use and only about an hour to an hour and a half of heavy demanding software. Now MSI claims that the laptop weighs 10.05 pounds, and when I weighed the laptop here, it actually came in at 9.9 pounds. And when you add the AC adapter in that, it's just a little bit over 13 pounds of weight. Taking a look at 3D Firestrike Ultra, this kind of gives you the idea of the raw graphics performance potential for the laptop when rendering 4K games. On the MSI GT75, we're looking at just under 5,000, and on the Area 51M, you're looking at about 6,100. So that's about a 20% difference in performance, jumping from the RTX 2070 to the 2080. Taking a look at 3D Mark Time Spy, this is just the graphics score, so this is focusing purely on the GPU performance. We got 8125 on the GT75 and 10,547. So a little bit over 20% difference again between the RTX 2070 and the 2080. Taking a look at the benchmarks here, we have Cinebench R15 and we scored an average right around 1293. So this is the comparison with some of the other laptops out there. We have the Alienware Area 51M hitting 1846, the Asus ROG G703GX next with last year's 8950HK hitting 1475. And then we have an Evoc P960EN, which is a thinner and lighter machine, scoring 1173. The main thing that I'll say is that we're really getting the maximum possible performance out of the 9750H, which is kind of your ideal scenario when you're running a CPU. Honestly, this machine is cooling that 9750H exceptionally well, which you'll see here in a minute. So we could definitely fit a higher end CPU into this machine without a doubt, which again, there's a higher end configuration of this GT75. So I'd be really curious to see what the new 9980HK would score in a similar Cinebench R15 run. Let's go ahead and take a look at some gaming benchmarks for the GT75. First of all, you can see that we're getting excellent performance in Apex Legends and in Fortnite, especially when your settings are turned down a little bit. The new 9th gen Intel processor CPU performance really amps out the frame rates, especially when settings are on low. A lot of these laptops are putting out 240 Hertz monitors. This one does not have that, but it's important to note that you're getting really good frame rates on the new 9750H CPU. Taking a look at the Far Cry 5 benchmark, you can see that the GT75 only got 8 frames per second less than these more expensive laptops like the Area 51M and the Asus G703. Taking a look at the Apex Legends, this is being tested in the training grounds, so we have consistency between all the laptops. We got 230 FPS on the GT75 and 256 FPS on the Area 51M. So again, despite having dramatically better equipment in the Area 51M, we're only looking at a 26 FPS increase between the two laptops, which is very, very marginal. With The Witcher 3, we have a bigger performance difference. We have 89 FPS on the GT75 and 113 FPS on the Area 51M. So there's a 34 FPS difference, or about a 33-34% difference in performance, and that's a bigger gap. And that's an example of where in some games there's going to be very minimal to no gap between these machines, and in other games you're going to have up to like a 30-35% performance difference, and that's really where, depending on the games you play, you'll see a lot more bang for your buck going with an RTX 2070 versus like a RTX 2080, or having that desktop processor in your machine. Taking a look at how the laptop performed when under the stress test of the Heaven benchmark and the 3D Mark Firestrike physics test. So you can see that the GPU averaged 1722 when under the max profile, and averaged just about 30 less on the default fan profile. So you will get just slightly more performance when you're running the max fan profile. The CPU, on the other hand, averaged 3.99 gigahertz solid without any clock drops whatsoever during the stress test. So that's like A++ performance for me. The big thing here is that in a lot of thinner laptops under this similar type of stress test, you're going to see clock speeds on the GPU and the CPU dropping quite a bit lower, maybe to like 3.3 gigahertz or 3.2 gigahertz on the CPU, and we're not seeing that on the GT75. So let's go ahead and take a look at the thermal testing I did on this machine. Running a Cinebench R15 in a continuous loop, running at max fans, we hit an average temperature of only 50 degrees Celsius. That is insanely cool. That is the best cooling performance I've ever seen out of the laptop. That's the same for pretty much all of these tests. Let's keep going. So running the machine in the default fan profile, the default fans are dramatically quieter. We'll get into the noise results here in a moment, but we only hit 60 degrees Celsius. That is also insanely good. Now, I did stress test the system using the Heaven benchmark and the 3D Mark physics test, running continuously for 5 minutes straight, and we measured the average temperature during this 5-minute period. With the default fans, we averaged 65 degrees for the GPU and 73 degrees for the CPU. That is ridiculously low temperatures, especially considering this is just the default fan profile, and it is also exceptionally quiet fans as a whole. Now, the truly amazing temperature, in my opinion, is that when you run this thing on max fans, you're looking at 54 degrees on the GPU and 56 degrees on the CPU. That is insanely cool temperatures for a dual heavy stress load. If you're looking for a machine that has great temps, this one is probably the best temperatures of any that I've tested. Of course, the big reason for this low temp is that we're dealing with like middle tier hardware in a very high tier body. So this body, this is very large, and it's able to cool components that are much more powerful than these. Now, we tested the fan noise on the GT75. First of all, we're testing in an ambient room noise of about 40 decibels. That's with the air conditioner and fans off in the room. And now when we did the casual use of the laptop, it was inaudible. It did not add any sound to the room. The only way you can hear the fan when using the laptop casually is if you hold it up to your ear. Now when we did the dual load stress test with the Heaven Benchmark and 3D Mark Firestrike physics test, we reached a total of 47 decibels on this machine. That is insanely quiet, especially considering how low the temperatures of the GPU and CPU are when under that stress test. And last but not least, we tested the laptop with the max fans enabled, and this really got loud. At 63 decibels, this is one of the loudest laptop fans I have ever heard. If not the loudest, probably the loudest. It's insane. Just know that max fans typically aren't going to be needed because the temperatures are already so good on the default fan profile, but if you do want them, you're going to have to deal with a lot of fan noise. So let's break down all the pros and cons of a laptop like this. Well, first of all, we're seeing excellent temperatures from this machine. Now I don't know what the temperatures would be like on the higher end config of the GT75, but I do know that this lower end config has tons of thermal headroom, and so it could definitely fit in higher end components and probably still run at very reasonable temperatures. Another thing I will say that I love about this machine is the keyboard. It is incredibly responsive. Let me just hear this. The way the keys shunk in there, the deep travel, the very responsive nature of the mechanical keyboard, it's just probably the hands down best gaming keyboard out there on a gaming laptop, in my opinion. Now, another major pro for this machine is that because this thing cools the components so well, it really doesn't have to ramp the fans up very loud. So if you're someone that is sensitive to loud fans in a laptop, gets annoyed by having a loud laptop, this machine is freaking fantastic. Another major pro for this laptop is that it has exceptionally good build quality. There is basically no torquing this machine at all. I mean, except the screen just a tiny bit, but even then, that is an acceptable amount of flex in a machine. There's just very, very little flex, even in the keyboard area. Another major pro for this laptop is that it offers 5 M.2 storage slots. That's insane. And you also get a 2.5-inch drive slot as well. So, I mean, if you want to fit in 14 terabytes of SSD space in here, you can totally do that. Another awesome thing about this laptop is that it has exceptionally good speakers, reaching 95 decibels in the San Hollow light sound test that I do on every laptop. This is the loudest laptop I've ever tested, and overall the speakers are also very clear with a good amount of bass, and because it's so loud, it's like room-filling audio. So if you're someone that wants a good set of speakers in a laptop, because this one's thicker, you're going to be able to get a lot better speakers out of it. Some of you are going to love the way the GT75 looks. It's got this dragon logo on the back that lights up, the MSI logo, the predominantly metal finish, the light up touchpad buttons. It's an overall cool looking laptop, but for me, it's a bit bulky and a bit boxy looking, so it's not like the ideal looking laptop for me, but I could see how some people would love it. For me, when I see this machine, I think the two biggest cons for me, first of all, number one, you're really paying a premium price for all of the stuff in this laptop. You got that hi-fi audio DAC, the excellent speakers, the lots of storage options, the exceptionally good cooling. All of that costs a pretty penny compared to other laptops that have the exact same internal hardware. I think the biggest overall con for me when I see this laptop is that I see a laptop that is thick and is heavy, and yet it doesn't sport the ultra premium high-end hardware, at least in this configuration. Now, of course, this is an argument, I think, for getting the more expensive version of this that costs $4,400, because that comes with the i9-9980HK and the RTX 2080. If I'm going to spend a ton of money on a system like this, I want the highest possible hardware that I can get. And so that means that at $2,900, I could get instead a GE75 with an RTX 2080, for example, and get better performance in a thinner package. Or, for example, the Aorus 15 that has the exact same hardware as this one, and yet that one is thinner, cheaper, and lighter. So who should buy this low-end configuration of the GT75? Well, first I will say is people who value having a very quiet laptop. And this laptop is one of the quietest, best cooling performance of any laptop that I've seen. Number two is people who value having lots and lots of storage. This has the most storage options of any laptop on the market. And the last group of people that you consider buying this laptop is people who just don't care about the size of their laptop. This is a great freaking laptop with the only Con being its size. Like it's a massive high performance laptop with just about everything you could ask for in a laptop. It's just big and heavy. So if you're willing to put up with that bigness and heaviness, it's a laptop that's hard not to recommend. That's it for this review of the GT75. If you enjoyed this review, be sure to hit that like button. And if you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys in the next one. Brandon out.